I found myself in dingy back rooms, in dark car parks, and for those too frightened to speak to me face to face, on the phone, trying to get hold of individuals too frightened to speak because they kill and are trained to kill, and they're told not to talk to anyone because they are serial killers.
Close to 100, because it can sometimes be 2 a week.
I'd say about 60, 70, maybe 80 at a push.
In a week, I maybe do somewhere between 50 and 60.
But I found they were still human.
It was pretty traumatic. I still remember it as if I'd watched it on television, and I could feel the heart kind of racing underneath my fingers.
I thought if I do this so hesitantly or sloppily, then it's going to end up a lot messier than I thought. So basically just grit your teeth, do it as fast as you can, get it over with.
The first time I actually did it, it went okay, but after about 5 minutes I was just shaking, and that stayed for about, I'd say about the next 10 times I did it, I would shake before and afterwards.
But their victims are not human.
I had the opportunity to decapitate 3-day-old mouse pup. I take out the muscles, and the most humane way to kill an animal of that age is to separate its brain from its spinal cord.
I spoke to scientific research students who experiment on animals.
You can sometimes draw parallels between a research scientist and, a serial killer, with, the joke always being that, I have a license to kill.
And I wondered why their world was so secretive.
They tell you from day one there, just be careful who you tell, just make sure nobody around you is listening in.
So I went to the source. I donned a lab coat and went where most people wouldn't dare. I'm here with Professor John Pearce of the Cardiff School of Psychology, and I'm actually in the mouse house where they house the animals they use their experiments. It's a very small room and there are only rats involved, and they are levels of cages, troughs with bars, and they all have water and they all have food, and there's maybe 1 or 2 rats per cage. And a lot of the rats here look like they've had some stitches and stuff on their heads.
Yes. In some of our experiments we might create what we call a lesion, which is destroy a small part of the brain, and then we'll see how that affects the animal's behaviour. What always impresses me with these experiments, even though the animals have been operated on, you can look at them and for all intents and purposes they look absolutely normal. Occasional squeals from one as they sort of romp with each other.
And what is the life expectancy of
rats,
how long?
Yeah, rats normally live for 2 years, and we'll keep them for about 3 or 4 months, and then when we finish with them, we have to put them to sleep.
And how is that done?
That's done with carbon dioxide, I think. I think they just put into a box with carbon dioxide, which I think quite literally puts them to sleep.
Is there no better way to study the functioning of a certain part of the brain than affecting it in an animal and seeing the results? It seems pretty crude.
Yeah, that's right. It is crude, and I think most researchers will agree it's crude, and they'd much prefer a more satisfactory method.
What would you have to say to people who actually find this distressing?
Well, I would happily talk to them to explain why I do my research and what its benefits are. I would also happily bring them down here and let them see how the animals are being treated. Although I do accept that there is a certain very small minority of people who probably would still find what I do offensive after that, and there's nothing I could do to persuade them otherwise.
I was surprised by the professor's openness, which seemed to contradict the fears I encountered. So I found someone so involved in animal rights, she's part of a political movement looking to win seats at the European election. I'm here with Lorraine Parker, who's part of a new political party called Animals Count, and I'm being watched by 2 very lovely cats and past 1 very busy rabbit on the way. So Lorraine, tell me more about this party.
Okay, Animals Count is a political party which was set up for people and animals. It was launched in Wales actually in 2006, and in fact it has 1 senator, 2 MPs in Parliament, and a really good following. So it's up and running in the European Parliament and doing very, very well.
To a certain extent, do you think there is any way that science can continue without experimenting on animals at all?
For me, testing on animals and experimenting on animals is ethically and morally just plain wrong. I mean, people don't talk about these horrific experiments that are going on, and in secrecy and behind closed doors. Often people that we want to debate the discussion with will often run away, actually, and won't debate, scientists.
And there it is again, the secrecy factor, what made it so difficult to hear from the people actively euthanizing the animals. And it's the silence that makes them a target.
They don't accept it as well because it's quite secretive. If we spoke quite openly about what we did and why we did it, I think there'd be less of a problem.
But it's the very nature of science which cloaks their activities in mystery.
I'd be quite happy to take parties of people around my laboratories and show them what the animals do and show the animals being tested and so on. But often that's impractical because experiments have to be take place in really well-controlled environments where people wandering in and wandering out are actually going to jeopardise the scientific value of the experiment. So we're almost forced to do our research behind closed doors in order to ensure the research produces reliable and robust findings.
So scientists find themselves in a maze of paradoxes not even their specimens would be able to find their way through.